So I'm going to close out a bunch of these files. And now let's go through our SASS and see if there's any other places where we can convert our absolute CSS units over to relative. So I'm going to grab everything in our components section here, and I'll drag it over, and we'll go through these one by one. I'll put the editors side by side so we can visually see what we're talking about. So here we're at the slide section. So let's scroll down until we get to that. That's this more than just a company. Again, in our design, what it looks like, if we can go back to our mockup, is this slide right here. Right now we've just tackled the typographical elements, the header and the paragraph here. So we'll just go down here. So it looks like we have 4 places where we're using pixels. The first is padding, and it's been a little while, but the reason why we added this padding was just so we could get a little bit of visual separation between the edges and our text. And this is something that was just temporary, so we'll leave that as is. And now we have the title, and we're setting the font size to 44 pixels. So again, if we use absolute numbers for this heading, then when a user changes the font size, it's not going to adjust the heading size at all. Now this heading is already pretty big, so allowing the browser user to increase the size isn't necessarily a readability issue, but at some point if they increase the size of this text here and the size of this text will become very close to each other in size, and it will be hard to tell that it's a heading. So it's clear that using a relative unit would be good. But in this case, do we want it to be EMs? Remember that when we set the font size of an element using EMs, what it's going to do is look at the container element to see what its font size is, and it will base its font size on that. Now it doesn't seem like this header should change in font size if we've changed the font size of some containing element. That's an unnecessary connection, and it will probably cause us some headache down the road if we allow ourselves to make that connection. But we still want it to be resizable. So again, we've talked about the REM or REM unit before, and that's what we need here. That gives us the ability to measure against the base font size of the site, and that base font size is set by the user, but by default it's 16 pixels. So what we want now is a way to convert pixels to REMs. So let's go and open up our functions partial, and let's add a new function called px to rem. So I'm just going to copy this initial one, I'll paste it in here, and then I'll change the name to px to rem. And in this case, we're not going to need to change the base size at all, because the base size will always be 16 pixels, or whatever the user has set. So we can remove that parameter, and then here for base size, we'll use the default font size variable. We could just put 16, but it's possible that in the future, that might change. And we want to make sure that we're only defining that value in one place, so we can easily change it. Trying to figure out where we're using the number 16 to describe the default font size throughout all of our CSS after we're done with a project is going to be a complete nightmare. And then to wrap this up, we need to change this EM to REM, and we'll save it. Now let's go back to our slide, and here we'll use the PX to REM, and we'll pass it 44. Let's save it. Let's go back to our browser and refresh, and it looks like the font size is still the same, but if we inspect it, we're now using REMs.